Noah Webster. Noah Webster was born in October of 1758 in West Hartford, Connecticut. His father was a farmer and a weaver by trade, and his mother stayed home. Out of all the children in his family, he was the only one to go to university. So at 16, he went off to Yale and graduated 40 years later. In his early years, he wanted to be a lawyer, and he did eventually become one. He became a teacher. He also, just an interesting fact, he also palled around with Ben Franklin, who was kind of a gnarly dude at the time, which is interesting because Noah's not. As a teacher, he discovered that various teachers used various books. All of them were inherently British. And at the time, we were a new country. We are American. And we needed our own way of teaching our children in a more consistent way. So he wrote it's called a Grammatical Institute of the English Language, also called the Blue-backed Speller. It was not copyrighted, so it quickly spread throughout the land for all the teachers to use to teach their children in a more consistent way with a more complete education of the time. He went on to create the Webster Dictionary. In 1801, he wrote an essay that we need to have a book of inherently American words that all of us will spell the same. And at the time, and even in all of our early readings, you'll find there are many different ways to spell many different words. Reading some of the initial parts of some of the initial essays and writings in our course, they've been very difficult to understand because the spelling is just literally all over the place. So this book is valuable because it created a more consistent way of all of us writing. And it's been something I've referred to many times. Most of you now will use Merriam-Webster.com. There were roughly 70,000 words in the first edition, published in 1828. Now there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 470,000 words, including Hogwarts. Noah wanted to protect his work that he had worked so hard, so he wanted to copyright it. At the time, the laws were not really all that great. You had to go to each state and request that your book be copyrighted in that state. You had to go to the government. So that's what he did. He went to all the governments and said, this is my book and I want it my book. And so they granted him the rights. All of these states, the notoriety of him actually going to each of these states and securing copyrights in those states got him invited to the White House. He wasn't really impressed with the experience, but it did spur him on to really work to create a generalized copyright law for all authors to protect their works. Once that law was passed, it protected the author and their heirs for 28 years, with renewal rights for 14 more. So Webster died in 1843. He was 86 years old, and he's buried in New Haven's Grove Street Cemetery. G&C Merriam Company bought the rights to an American Dictionary of English Language from Webster's estate soon after his death. They published and revised and published the dictionary multiple times. The first one was in 1848. We're now up to the 11th edition. So if you ever decide that you need to know how to spell vacuum, and you don't really know whether there's two C's or two U's, look it up. I'm pretty sure No will tell you how.